when you're too loud, people will let you know. They will. But I would say the majority of people need more volume. They need more volume. Because, again, imagine you had an idea that you're trying to share, and like I'll switch all my foundations off. I'll switch them all off right now, okay? No body language, nothing. So imagine I just did the rest of the talk like this. This is me playing the smaller version of myself. This is me being quiet. To me, this is highly irritating, and I'm slightly losing my mind right now. But I want to give you the contrast, because here's the thing. If you keep playing the smaller version of yourself, what kind of opportunities would you attract being this person? And it's not your fault. It's not your fault if that's how you are now. It's because we've never been taught how to use this instrument. You were born and you were given one of the most complex instruments in the world. No manual, no teacher, no coach. Just get good. It's ridiculous. But to me, when you learn how to use this, remember this thing we talked about? You may be this good, but if you're only this good at communicating, people perceive you to be this good, not this good. So as you improve your communication skills, you're then able to amplify to the rest of the world the best parts of who you are. You're then able to show the rest of the world what you've truly got inside. But only if you learn how to use this. I've showed you the foundations for voice. I've showed you the foundations for hand gestures. We don't have time to go through everything. But I know there's one thing that will stop you from practicing. It's that when you walk into an environment where people know who you are and they know you're naturally quiet, for example, and you come into that environment, you're like, hey guys, trying something new. They'll be like, what? Why is she squatting? What is happening? And here's the thing. So I need to teach you something very important. There's a concept I teach in my workshops, and what it's called neutral ears. A neutral ear is someone who has no preconceived idea of who you are and what you're like. So for example, you're in Toronto. You may go to the local deli here. You're like, that person doesn't know who I am. I'm normally quiet. Bugger it. You go in and you go, good afternoon. Do you have any bagels here? And they will just accept you for who you are. And they'll be like, gosh, that's a loud person. But anyway. But what that does is you don't get the flinch. Because from your friends, they'll kind of be like, what are you doing? Just that slight flinch will make you go back into your mold. But when you find a neutral ear and you try something different with your voice, they don't flinch. They just accept you for who you are. Because they don't know any better. That helps your new behavior stick that little bit more. And a place where hopefully you're all not in your home city. There's plenty of neutral ears here. Try something different with your voice. Play with your tonality. Walk in with a very excited face. And all of a sudden you sound more excited over a chocolate bar like you've never sounded before. But play with this instrument. That's the only way you explore. But there's always going to be one thing that stops you from doing that. Do you know what it is? Fear. Did someone say fear? But you see, look, let's be real for a second. Look, danger is very real. But fear is not a useful feeling. Fear is just an illusion. But why is this important again in the context of communication? So many people, when they leave this little workshop of ours, you will feel fear when it comes to trying something different with your voice. You're going to feel scared. And what I'm telling you is when you try to use your voice differently, there are no nails. It's not real. They're illusions that you have in your mind, molds that other people create for you that are not real. My friends, you have one of the most beautiful instruments in the world. Learn how to master this, and it will change the way you're able to connect with those you lead. And more importantly, it will help you connect with those you love at such a deeper level. In this video, I want to share with you one of the most effective exercises when it comes to trying to strengthen your vocal cords. Let me ask you this first. If I asked you, how do you strengthen your biceps? Do you know what exercise you need to do? You probably know. You need to do a bicep curl. If I asked you, how do you strengthen your chest? How do you do that? You probably can think of an exercise too. You do push-ups. And if I asked you, how do you strengthen your stomach, your abs? You probably know an exercise for that too. You do sit-ups. But what if I asked you, how do you strengthen your voice? Can you tell me an exercise that you should do if you want to strengthen your vocal folds? It blows my mind that this is the most important instrument in our lives, yet we don't get taught how to strengthen it. Not in primary school, not in high school, not in tertiary education, and not even in our professional careers. Let me share with you one of the most effective exercises to better strengthen your vocal cords to give you a more powerful sounding voice. There's 5 steps to this exercise regime. The first step is you have to do a lip flutter, which looks like this, and do it just like that with no audible sound, because if there's sound you can go no sound, just the lip flutter. So you do this, do that for one entire breath, and then repeat another 2 times, therefore doing it a total of 3 times. That's step 1. Step 2, we're going to break it up. Do the same thing, but do it in spurts, just with one breath. So you do it like this. Running out of air. And I repeat, you just do that once. The third step, now what you do is you do the lip flutter again, except you add sound. Try to maintain a constant pitch, so you do it like this. Oh, you're making me lose my focus, Craig. Until you run out of breath. And also remember, you must repeat that 3 times in total. I know that right now you're thinking this seems silly and it's going to feel silly when you do it, yet it's the most powerful exercise you can put yourself through to strengthen your vocal cords to give you a more powerful voice. Step 4, you do a lip flutter, just one, except you're going from a low pitch to a high pitch, like this. Just do this once. And step 5, the final one, just lip flutter your favorite song. I'm kidding, that's not my favorite song. When I first started working on my voice, my singing teacher always made me do these exercises every single time we had a singing class. And she taught me, she said, Vin, if you do this every single day, you're going to create an incredibly powerful voice. And you see, with voice, you have to remember it's consistency over intensity. Why? Because your vocal folds, they're so thin. And if you intensely work out the vocal folds for 3 or 4 hours a day, you destroy your voice. But if you work out your vocal folds 5 minutes a day and you go through this lip flutter exercise once a day, I promise you, in 6 months' time, you'll sound very different. Welcome to another walk and talk video with Vin. In this video, I want to talk to you about the 2 common reasons why I believe people don't become successful. I've been running communication and public speaking workshops now for about 3 years. And during the days where I run the workshops, I always have a Q&A component at night. And I absolutely love it because people can ask me whatever they want. And I've noticed a pattern because I've run about 10 of them now. And people always ask the same things. And I've noticed 2 things that people tend to lack when they're looking at creating success in their life, and that's what I want to talk about. And here's what I've learned. Most people don't succeed not because they're not capable, but rather because of 2 reasons. 1, it's simply because they don't know how. They lack the knowledge. And 2, it's maybe they do have the knowledge, but they're not taking action. Or in other words, they're not applying the knowledge that they already know. You see, here's the key line that I really want you to focus on. It's rarely a question of capability, but rather it's just a question of knowledge and application. I believe if there's something you want to do, you absolutely can do it. You absolutely have the capability, you have the capacity, but to really bring that capacity to light and give the potential life, you need to build on your knowledge and your ability to take action. If there's one thing I can tell you with conviction is that I'm not a gifted person, not smart whatsoever. Failed year 12, failed high school, and then didn't even get my university degree. But I've been able to achieve a couple of things in my life that are somewhat successful simply because I keep putting new knowledge in my brain, and the moment I have new pieces of knowledge, I immediately take the knowledge and I apply it. Every time I follow this trail of thought, I can't help but think of Thomas Edison, who tried 6,000 different plant materials to create the light bulb. And do you know what piece of insight that reveals? It reveals that sometimes genius is just persistence in disguise. Working at it really works. And what I often find is that the persistence of acquiring new knowledge, and then the persistence of taking that new knowledge, and then the persistence of applying it, that's how the amazing people in life that you know, that I know, it's how they achieve the impossible. It's the persistence in acquiring knowledge and the persistence in applying the knowledge. My video stats say that by this point you're probably getting bored, so we've got to keep moving. Let's use me as an example and take two areas of my life. If you told me 10 years ago that I would be a keynote speaker and also run public speaking workshops, I probably would have told you that I'm not capable. And I would have immediately played that game in my head and say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But again, it's not a question of capability, it's a question of lack of knowledge and lack of application. Oh, and just in case you're wondering, I know this is a bid. You see, once I started to acquire knowledge on how to build a speaking career, I started going to schools, I started going to small boardrooms. I didn't get paid for it, but I started to apply the knowledge on how to build a keynote speaking career in those small places in my small city in South Australia. And after continuously applying trial and error, I now get to speak in front of massive audiences, thousands of people all over the world, most recently in Vegas in front of 10,000 people. And the same goes for my public speaking workshops. I started with a class of 12 people where nobody paid me a dime. And then just recently, my most recent workshop, I had just under 50 people, of which 46 paid, and 90% of them took a plane to come to the workshop. I have the speaking career that I have. I've got the workshop career that I have as a teacher, not because I'm a genius, but again, it comes back to those two things. I'm willing to build on my knowledge, I'm persistent in that, and then I'm persistent in taking that knowledge and then applying it and then trialing and erroring it. I call this doing a Thomas Edison. My friends, regardless of the dream you're chasing, regardless of what it is you're trying to achieve in your life, just know that it's rarely a question of capability. You're capable. You and me, all of us, we're made of the same stuff. Keep learning, keep applying, and do these two things consistently, and a whole new world of possibility awaits you. When I reflect on 2018, I didn't really struggle at all. Things were easy for me. Work was becoming routine, and also family life was good. I was spending a lot of time with family. I felt generally happy, but there was something that was missing. And the very thing that was missing was struggle. And what I've learned is that there's definitely a correlation between struggle and growth, because the extent of which you struggle determines your level of growth. What I started to realize was that struggle was a huge part of my happiness. It was a huge part of me actually feeling fulfilled. Because when I struggle, it means I'm growing. And when I'm growing, that means I'm actually feeling happy. So I thought about it a lot. I thought about it a whole lot. How could I introduce more struggle into my life? And I knew I wanted two forms of struggle. I wanted physical struggle, and then I wanted mental struggle. Now, for the physical struggle component, I went all out, and I bought a Peloton bike. And you have to understand, I absolutely hate all forms of exercise, absolutely despise it. So buying this bike was a huge deal for me. But I knew I had to go through struggle physically to appreciate rest. I had to go through struggle as much as I could so I could appreciate how important health was. And I pushed myself to be able to bike 15 minutes at a time, 20 minutes at a time, 30 minutes at a time, to the point now where I can go on the bike for an hour at a time. And here's the insightful thing I learned about struggling, is that you never want to begin the process of struggle. You never want to begin the process of struggle. Every time before I go on that bike, I'm like, ugh, I'm always thinking I don't want to do it. I'm always thinking I absolutely don't want to get on that bike. But then the moment you get on, the moment you begin struggling, it gets easier. And the most wonderful thing that struggle, physical struggle, provides you with afterwards is absolute euphoric bliss. After I finish being on the bike, I feel incredible. And not only this, I wanted to also put myself through mental struggle. And what I decided to do was, every single morning, I'm going to get up at 5 in the morning and read for 3 to 5 hours. And this is struggle for me, because generally I read for about an hour, maximum 2. Pushing it to 3 to 4 hours was truly a challenge. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's that progress is a part of happiness. When we're progressing, when we're growing, we feel good. So my friends, in 2019, my question for you is, rather than just thinking, what are the goals you want to achieve? What are the aims you want to go for? I want to ask you the question, what are you going to be struggling with this year? What kind of forms of struggle are you going to engage in? Because again, where there's struggle, that's where growth lives. You know, I've been told that I have beautiful toes. Listen, I want to share with you the things that I'm going to struggle with this year. Definitely the reading. I'm going to push myself to read for longer extended periods of time. I'm also going to push myself to physically struggle a lot more. I'm going to find more challenges with that. But 2 extra ones I want to share with you. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm going to learn Mandarin. I've been telling myself my entire life that it's impossible. I'm going to struggle with that. And the final one, I'm going to learn how to play piano. An instrument that, again, I always tend to think is impossible. Those are my 4 struggles. Share with me what your 4 struggles are. What he says, but he says something along the lines of, Vin, you are how you spend your time. And he really wanted to share this with me as a lesson that changed his life. So I stood there for quite some time chatting to the gentleman, and he elaborated on what he was saying. He said, Vin, you get what you put in. If you spend an hour trying to get better at drawing a week, you're going to get better at drawing. And then he also said, if you spend an hour a week trying to get better at skateboarding, you're probably going to get better at skateboarding. Then he also says, the time we spend on things will come back to us with interest. And I found that super fascinating. I love that line. The time we spend on things will come back to us with interest. And on top of this, if you spend your time complaining and you spend your time feeling sorry for yourself, like good old Craig here, then you're probably going to get good at those things too. The person you are now compared to the person that you could potentially become in 10 years is largely dependent on how you spend your time. You have 100 hours in a week, 100 waking hours, right? You've got 100 waking hours when you minus eating, pooping, all the other stuff that you do with your time. You've got 100 productive hours. And then he got me to write down what I was doing with my time. And he said, put it in chunks. So then I wrote it down. I was spending 40 hours a week at the petrol station. I was working then. I was spending 30 hours a week at university. And then I was spending 10 hours a week with my online business. And then after that, I was spending about 20 hours with family. Right? This was what I was spending my time on. So then he said to me, Vin, I'm going to tell you your future. You are 40% likely going to become a successful petrol station manager. You are 30% very likely to become successful at university when you come out as an accountant. Then you're 10% likely going to succeed at your online business. 20% likely you're going to become a very effective and good family member. This blew my mind in a bad way, because I realized that when you add these 2 things up down here, 40 hours plus 30 hours, that's 70% success rate at 2 things that I don't want to actually do. I don't want to become a manager at a petrol station. I don't want to become an accountant. That's when I decided to quit university. That's when I decided to no longer work at the petrol station and spend my time building the online business. My mentors and my teachers helped me realize that there's a correlation between the time you spend doing something and what you actually become successful at. I wanted to share this with you just in case it's going to become useful for you as you navigate your future. I've finally been able to distill this lesson into one simple phrase, and it's that how you spend your time in the present will determine what you'll become successful at in the future. Be very careful at what you spend your time on, because you may just become successful at something you don't actually want.